What would you do if the man you loved dropped a bombshell that turned your world upside down? Sarah stood in her small, sunlit apartment, the scent of fresh coffee still lingering in the air, when Jake walked through the door. His face was pale, his eyes hollow, and his usual confident stride was replaced by a hesitant shuffle. In his arms, he carried a tattered duffel bag, and behind him trailed two children, a boy and a girl, no older than 8, their faces a mix of confusion and quiet hope. Sarah's heart sank. She hadn't signed up for this. They'd been together for a year, navigating the highs and lows of a passionate but sometimes rocky relationship. Now, Jake's words hit her like a freight train. I'm moving in. With the kids. And I can't pay rent right now because I might lose them. Sarah's mind reeled. Jake had mentioned his kids before, Ellie, 8, and Max, 6 from his previous marriage, but they were always a distant part of his life, living with their mother across town. He saw them on weekends, brought them ice cream, and told Sarah funny stories about their antics. But this was different. She stared at the children, their small hands clutching Jake's jacket, and felt a pang of guilt mixed with fear. Her apartment was barely big enough for her, let alone a family of 3. And no rent? She worked long hours as a nurse, scraping by to cover her bills. How was she supposed to handle this? Jake sank onto the couch, the kids sitting close to him, their eyes darting around the unfamiliar space. He explained in a low, shaky voice that his ex-wife, Laura, was fighting for full custody. She'd hired a lawyer, claiming Jake was unstable and unemployed, unreliable, unfit. The truth was messy. Jake had lost his construction job during a recent layoffs wave, and his temper had flared during arguments with Laura, giving her ammunition. The court hearing was in 2 weeks, and if he didn't show stability at home, a plan, a life for his kids, lose them for good. I need to be here, Sarah, he said, his voice breaking. For them. I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for them. Sarah's heart twisted. She loved Jake, or at least she thought she did. But this wasn't just about love anymore. It was about her space, her independence, her carefully balanced life. She wanted to scream, to tell him to figure it out somewhere else, but the sight of Ellie and Max stopped her. Ellie's braid was coming loose, and Max's sneakers were untied, one lace dragging on the floor. They weren't just Jake's kids, they were kids, scared and caught in a storm they didn't understand. Sarah took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, for now, but we need to talk about this. The first week was chaos. Jake slept on the couch. The kids shared an air mattress in the corner, and Sarah's tidy apartment turned into a maze of toys, clothes, and half-eaten cereal bowls. She tried to be patient, but the strain was immediate. Jake was distracted, poring over legal documents he barely understood, while Sarah juggled her shifts and the sudden role of part-time caregiver. Ellie was quiet, always drawing in a sketchbook, but Max was a whirlwind, knocking over lamps and asking endless questions. Sarah felt like she was drowning, and Jake's promises to figure it out felt emptier each day. Then came the twist. One evening, as Sarah was cleaning up after dinner, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find a woman standing there mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with a clipboard and a badge that read Child Welfare Services. Her name was Ms. Carter, and she was there to evaluate Jake's living situation. Sarah's stomach dropped. No one had warned her about a home visit. Jake froze, his face pale, as Ms. Carter stepped inside, her gaze sweeping over the cramped apartment. The air mattress, the cluttered counter, the lack of proper bedsit all looked damning. Sarah could see the judgment in Ms. Carter's eyes, and for a moment, she wanted to run. This wasn't her fight. She didn't owe Jake anything. But then Ellie spoke up, her small voice cutting through the tension. "This is my picture," she said, holding up her sketchbook. It was a drawing of the apartment, bright, colorful, with Sarah, Jake, Max, and herself standing together, smiling. "This is our home now," Ellie said softly. "Sarah makes us pancakes." Sarah's throat tightened. She hadn't realized how much those small moments making pancakes, tying Max's shoes, listening to Ellie's shy stories had meant to them. Miss Carter's expression softened, and she jotted something down. "You're doing a lot here, Sarah," she said, her tone kinder now. "It's not easy stepping up like this." That night, after Miss Carter left and the kids were asleep, Sarah and Jake sat at the kitchen table. The silence was heavy, but for the first time, it wasn't hostile. "I didn't ask for this either," Jake admitted, his voice raw. "I'm terrified, Sarah. I can't lose them, but I know I'm asking too much of you." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not just a man she loved, but a father fighting for his kids. She realized something else, too. She wasn't just helping Jake. She was helping Ellie and Max, who had no one else to lean on. Over the next week, Sarah took charge. She helped Jake organize his legal papers, found a pro bono lawyer through a colleague, and rearranged her apartment to make it more kid-friendly. She bought bunk beds on credit, set up a corner for Ellie's art, and taught Max how to tie his shoes properly. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments, late-night worries, and moments when Sarah wondered if she'd made a mistake. But there were also moments of light. Ellie's laughter when Sarah burned a batch of cookies, Max's proud grin when he finally got his laces right, Jake's quiet "thank you" when he thought she wasn't listening. The court hearing came, and Sarah went with Jake. She sat in the back, her heart pounding, as the judge reviewed the case. Ms. Carter's report was pivotal. She noted the stable environment, the kids' attachment to both Jake and Sarah, and the effort to make the apartment a home. Laura's lawyer argued fiercely, but the judge ruled in Jake's favor, granting him joint custody. He wouldn't lose his kids. As they left the courtroom, Jake grabbed Sarah's hand, tears in his eyes. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "But you did." Back at the apartment, Sarah looked at the chaos that had become her life. The bunk beds, the crayon marks on the wall, the sound of Max's chatter, and Ellie's soft humming. It wasn't what she planned. But as she watched Jake tuck the kids into bed, reading them a story with a tenderness she hadn't seen before, she felt something shift. This wasn't just about saving Jake or his kids. It was about choosing to build something, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. Sarah didn't know if she and Jake would last forever. Love was messy, and so was life. But as she sat on the couch, listening to the quiet sounds of her new, unexpected family, she realized she'd made a choice not just for Jake, but for herself. She'd chosen to open her heart, to make room, to fight for something bigger than her own comfort. And in that choice, she found a strength she hadn't known she had.